Hope you're having a great day. I've been learning lots. It's been very interesting listening to all the other speakers. So today I'm going to talk to you about our family's egg business and just some of the social responsibilities and how our values help to drive our commitment to social responsibility and our business in general, and also how they influence family business succession at Burnbrae. So the roots of our family business. My great-grandfather came here in 1890, well, the late 1890s, and he actually settled in what is now Winnipeg. And then I think he found it too cold with too many mosquitoes, so he moved back to Brockville, which is 3 hours east of Toronto, east of Kingston. And there he purchased the farm, which is now the core of our business, Burnbrae Farms. And he was a dairy farmer, so he had Ayrshire cattle. And in this picture, you see my dad is here, and that's my Uncle Grant, and that's my grandfather. And so they worked on the farm. My dad grew up milking cows when he started walking, and working on the farm, and as did all of his siblings. His sisters, there's 5 of them, went off to become nurses and school teachers, but the 2 boys stayed and worked the farm. And then in about 1942, when my dad was 13, he did a high school project, and he introduced 50 chickens to our dairy farm through this project, where he had to raise day-old chicks to pullets, and that got us started in the egg business. And he used to take eggs into town with the milk, and that's how we got started. And my dad, although I will say he's one of the most hardworking people I've ever known, he didn't like to get up early. So cows, as you know, you got to milk them at like 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. or whatever, whereas chickens, you just have to collect the eggs and the manure and feed them once a day. So if you're sort of a night owl, it's a lifestyle more fitting with your with how you like to handle yourself. So gradually the business shifted into chickens, and through the 1940s and in the late 50s, we took on our first major chain store customer, which would have been Steinberg's. Who remembers Steinberg's? And I know there was a Steinberg's in Brockville. You used to go do your Steinberg's. I mean, there was massive. They're no longer around anymore, but they were our first grocery retailer that we started to service in the late 1950s. And gradually he grew the egg business, and all through, you know, sort of as supply management was evolving. So there's some interesting stories about the chicken and egg wars as supply management came in. But today you probably recognize brands like Omega-3 and Simply Egg Whites. And we are now Canada's #1 egg producer. We'd be the largest quota holder in Canada for layer hen quota. We're the largest egg grader. We've got 7 grading stations and 3 processing plants. And we are the leader in liquid eggs with such brand names as Simply Egg Whites and Egg Creations. And we're also the largest specialty egg marketers. So I love in family businesses how, you know, things evolve, because people think business happens with grand strategy and big boardrooms with lots of people in suits, and I always tell the story of the Omega-3 egg, because I had been dispatched to our processing plant in Upton, Quebec, back in 1993. I started to work in the business before I finished college in 1990, and I was working there helping to pull the office together, and we had just purchased some extended shelf life liquid egg equipment that was designed for milk, didn't quite work on eggs, and I was there to help manage us through this issue with our local people. And while I was there, actually this is the story of Simply Egg Whites. While I was there, I was working with Richard Millette, and he was like, "Margaret, you got to find something to do with all these egg whites," because we were making the egg yolks for Hellmann's mayonnaise. And egg whites were a byproduct of production that we shipped into the United States. And and so he said, couldn't you just go launch some retail product or something? So in 1996, while I was working there, I started to create the packaging and work with the plants and the people to come up with an extended shelf life liquid egg white. And we launched that back in 1997, and it got the liquid egg market going in Canada. Also at Upton in 1996, I traveled to Australia in 95 and was all excited because I came back and they were marketing this Omega egg. And I went to my dad and I said, Dad, we should launch an Omega egg. And he's like, we're too busy. And I said, Dad, it was a really great idea. If we don't do it, someone else will do it. He was like, we're too busy. So I said, well, I really like to do it. He said, well, you go ahead and do it. You do what you want to do anyway. And so that was our boardroom meeting. And so I started to work with our poultry ops guys with feeding the chickens, and I had to work with Health Canada to get a temporary marketing agreement letter to launch the package. And we put it on the market in 96, and it's now the #2 selling product in the egg category in the grocery store. So sometimes big ideas come out of interactions, and just being there means that you get noticed and things happen. And that is especially true in a family business where you can be very young driving change and actually get your voice heard, and it's such great opportunities in family business for the younger generation. Burnbrae has received some great recognitions. We're a gold member. I like to say we're gold level because Austin Powers. But we're gold level of the best managed. We're BRC certified, so if you look at our values, quality assurance is huge, and we've put BRC in. We've always been focused on quality, but a lot of our retail partners wanted to see BRC status. So we've been recognized by the International Egg Commission for both marketing and egg processing. And our founder, my father, Joe Hudson, has received the prestigious Golden Pencil Award. And I believe Anthony Longo has also received that and is inducted into the Ontario Agricultural Hall of Fame. And he's the Burnbrae Eggman of the Year. He's the only Canadian to be recognized by the U.S. egg industry, and also a We Care Life member. And we've also received 13 of these guys. And I think we're the only, Canadian independent, other than possibly Longo's, that has received, certainly manufacturing side, 13 of these Grand Prix for food excellence in Canada. And that, I think, shows back to our values, innovation. We're very innovative. We're always trying to innovate, whether it's new products or new processes, driving our business. And then we get recognized, and it's really great to be recognized for these things that we do. That little egg white and omega-3 eggs spurred all kinds of egg products. I always say that before I had real kids, I had egg product children. And I've nurtured them as aggressively as I have my children. We also have a great group of customers, and I always tell a story of working in the grading station, and I used to run the order desk, and we did not let the retailer run out of eggs. And that speaks to customer service, also a value of Burnbrae. We do not, I remember driving downtown in the company little van, I don't have my license, and unloading eggs in a grocery store that it wasn't a Longo store. It had rats running around, and I was in my high-heeled shoes, but I got those eggs off because that store was going to be out of eggs. And that is, what we do. And because we're so passionate about, customer service and all the quality and innovation, we have, some of the best retail and food service partners and industrial partners that there are in Canada, and we're very proud of them. So Burnbrae does have 7 grading stations, and we're in 5 provinces as described. We also have 3 further processing plants, one in eastern Quebec, one in Brockville, and another in Winnipeg. And we grade and break eggs, and we also produce eggs. So we kind of go from the chicken to the consumer, and we're very, very, very passionate about that. This just gives you a bit of a timeline of our company back to, 1893, where my grandfather purchased the farm in Lynn. The high school venture, we started shipping to a large corporate customer. We entered the processing business in the early 70s. We entered Quebec at the same time. A lot of hard work. My father is very clever, An interesting thing, though, was when my dad actually fought supply management for many, many years, and the system came in. I always say, well, I was being born, my dad was off fighting supply management. And then in 1972, the system came in. But one thing that my dad is, and this speaks to hard work and being very innovative and clever, but he basically borrowed all the money he possibly could. The feed companies owed him he owed the feed companies so much money because he just put up as many chicken barns as he possibly could. He was like, okay, if this system is going to go in, I'm going to have as many chickens as possible when it does. And so we came out of that as like the largest quota holder in Canada back in the early 70s, and that put us in a great position to be able to build the processing parts of our business. And an interesting, stat. So I started in 1990. I had started in the business, and actually when I was 8, I started picking eggs in the chicken barns. And I always said when I took grade 9 typing in grade 11. And then my dad figured out I could type. So then I started going in the office on the weekends and typing his memos. One year I was his driver, the amazing jobs you get in a family business. And I would leave at 11 o'clock at night to drive him to Toronto and get in at 2 in the morning, and I'd have the fans blowing on me while he was sleeping in the back. But, interesting, fun stories growing up in a family business. Always a passion for the business, always very exciting, and learning it, from the ground up. And being able to speak to those experiences to the employees that work with us now today is, really important. And then my dad did put in place, I have to say, and listening to, the speakers today, he actually got a lot of good advice, and we have a lot of the things that are being promoted, like we couldn't own shares without prenuptial agreements. We've got a shareholders agreement. I started up a family council with the family, trying to preserve both the family as we grow the business. I always say healthy family, healthy business. And if you keep the family strong, you'll keep the business strong. And I focus on both because I just think they're both so incredibly important. And then back in 2010, we actually had the formal control of the company passed. So I would say that we've beat one statistic. I think it's something like 35% don't make it to the second generation. And so we've beat that statistic, and I'm working very hard to make sure that we get to G3 successfully transitioned. I think that's one of the most important things that I have to do today, working with my family and working with the business. So one of the big issues that we face is in animal agriculture is basically there's an activist community that's focused on abolishing animal agriculture, and they take the fact that less than 2% of the population farms, and they use that lack of information to provide misinformation and sway people, away from animal agriculture. I always say in the egg industry, it's back to the future. Because this is Burnbrae Farms back in, I would say this would be very early. That was our cow barn, and these are the little hen coops that my father put out behind it back in the early 40s. This tree actually still exists behind our grading station on this field, but this is how my father raised birds back in the, 40s and 50s. And we actually went into the hen house for welfare reasons. My father used to patrol the grounds with a shotgun to get both the two-legged and the four-legged predators, and he would speak of the disease risk and the problems with their feet when the birds had outdoor access. And just recently, avian influenza came across North America, wiped out 15% of the U.S. layer hen population, and caused a massive egg shortage in the United States, which Canada didn't really feel because we are supply managed. But, we've worked very hard to bring the chickens into the barn to reduce exposure. And I guess as a family business, you kind of get, like, I didn't build this. My dad did. And I took, when my family and we took it over, the birds are all in cages, and all of a sudden we're getting, real little. My sister Sue is here, and she works with me in social media and PR, and we're constantly being targeted as a family. We take it very personally, and people are always so. people are always coming at us about our practices, people who don't really understand animal agriculture. So how do we navigate this? And I say we come back to our values. We come back to quality and integrity and respect and loyalty and customer service, and reaching out to consumers and driving transparency, and all these things that drive our family values are also driving how we go about business. So Burnbrae has recently invested in a professorship at the University of Guelph, where we actually have kept a professor in Canada who would have left, and she's dedicated to researching poultry welfare. And so we're investing in the future of our industry by investing in research to help learn what are the best practices. How do you keep layer hens safe throughout their life within large-scale animal agriculture? Because when there are only 1,000 people in Canada feeding, 30 million, you have to do agriculture intensively. And so how do you intensify agriculture and take care of the land and take care of the animals under your management? And that is something that we are working very, very hard to achieve. So through the professorship, we're looking at things like bone breakage, like what are the needs of the birds. We've discovered, for example, that a bird really has a high need to go into a nest area to lay her eggs. And so we have transitioned a lot of our housing into what we call enriched housing, and the birds get to go in and nest and perch and lay their eggs in this new style of cage system. But back in the late 90s, I actually had another one of those moments with my dad where we'd already done the omega thing and the egg weight thing. So when I went to him and said, I think we should launch free-run eggs, he said, okay. And he sent his poultry operators into Europe, and they came back having researched all these hen houses, and we actually have been marketing eggs from free-run layer hen systems since 1998. So when people say, you do free-run, I'm like, yeah, we've been doing it for over 20 years. We've been providing choice to customers through our retail partners for almost 20 years. And consumers in general, they buy based on price. So the consumer mindset needs to shift, and people need to become more educated, and industry will shift with that. So that's why we have my sister Sue in the room here, who works with Burnbrae, focusing on social media, because we're out there educating people about how birds are raised so that they can make an informed decision on how they want to purchase their eggs. And I view that back to our values. We're openness, we're showing... We are showing people our commitment to social responsibility, to transparency. We're providing proper welfare, and we're also communicating what we do so people can make informed choices. We also installed these solar panels on our farm to, again, we're putting energy back into the grid. I've spoken to our values, so these are our formal values: integrity, respect, quality, customer service, innovation, investing for the future, and social responsibility. And our company mission statement is a Canadian family egg business dedicated to quality, health, and innovation. So I've spoken to about the issues with non-farming Canadians and the different housing methods, the different knowledge gaps. So one of the areas that we have focused on is messaging around proper sustainable agriculture. And, animal health and well-being is one group, but there's also the environment, food affordability, human health, and food safety. And it's for all those reasons that our layer hens migrated, into the environment that we've been raising them in. But based on people increasingly focusing on animal health and well-being, we're moving back into free-run and enriched systems. So finally, just to close, I'm no expert on succession, and we have yet to navigate through the G2 to G3 transition, but some of the things that we've gone about as we've worked through it is healthy family, healthy business, and we focus on the family when we're looking at our succession strategies. Family before personal wealth maximization. I get in there and I work, and I feel like I'm working for the family, and all my siblings work in the business. I have a nephew in the business. I have a brother-in-law in the business, and we have a beautiful family, and we get along extremely well, and we work very hard together to cultivate that. And we have to make sacrifices, but overall, we're doing really well, and we work really hard, and we're very proud of our business. We seek the advice of a good family counselor as well as legal and financial. So we have, the pillars in place. I believe we're now looking at, doing a freeze and a butterfly and putting our shares into trusts, and we're working with legal and financial advice, but we also work with a great family counselor to help us with some of these intergenerational transition issues around who can own shares and all of those issues. And, we are getting the next generation involved early. I started at 8. My children attend trade shows and dinners and things. They don't get to pick eggs like I did because we don't live on the farm, but I'm going to hopefully get them down there in the summers and get them going and train them to be stewards. It's not about personal wealth maximization. It's about preserving the family legacy and being connected to a great business. And for our business specifically, we do have rules for entry. They have to come into a position that meets with their skills. They have to have a certain amount of education and outside work experience to enter the business and be proven outside of our business. We do have guiding principles for our family in the business, and we do have a code of conduct for family members in the business. And we're working on a advisory council and a governance committee on the advisory council to help with the progression of family members as they enter and their progression through the business. So help with those very tough decisions of who gets to enter and how do they progress, and getting some outside help so it's not always back on, the family shareholders, working family shareholders, to make those choices, which can be very hard on the family. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Oh, I forgot about my last thought. Here you go. Most important thing to know is that an egg a day is okay. Harvard School of Public Health, Nurses Public Health Study, high egg consumers have no greater risk of cardiovascular disease than low egg consumers. If you want me to come back and talk to you only about egg nutrition, I'd be happy to do that. Because that's what I talk about usually. Thank you.